If I can't stop talking about it, if the next person can't stop talking about it, that means it's such a big deal that everybody wants to see it. So I'm excited for this. It's got to happen. They can't let this slip through, and I'm going to keep peppering it until we get an announcement. Welcome back, everyone. This is Bando's Breakdowns, episode 49. My name is Zain Bando. Thanks again for tuning in. Again, it is greatly appreciated. We are back. Happy Friday to you all as we are in the midway point of June. It's pretty crazy. We were introducing the month of June just a couple of weeks ago, and now we're fully in the thick of the month of June as we get closer and closer to the first day of summer. Thank you so much for taking a little bit of time out of your day to listen to me as usual. Again, if you're listening after the fact, thank you so much, either on the audio only side or the video only side as well. And speaking of those things, let's go through how you can do just that. So this very show, Bando's Breakdowns, you can listen to this wherever you get your podcasts, whether that's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Acast, and so much more. We're on every major podcast distribution platform that there is, so that should make it easy for you guys to access this show and every other show across the network. And of course, you could check out all the content over on the video only side, youtube.com/ETB network. Only takes a few minutes to subscribe, hit the notification bell so you can check out all of the new content that we have coming out as such, and so much more, including all of the playback content, which we're going to get to an announcement regarding playback a little later on in the show. But until then, that's going to do it from an intro standpoint in here. And again, of course, you can follow me across social media at my own personal socials at ZanBando99. DMs are open on both, so please be sure to reach out, and I'll respond when I can, et cetera, et cetera. So just wanted to get some of that out of the way. And again, stay tuned for a message from Playback later on in the show. It would be greatly appreciated. So thanks again for that. So we're going to quickly move right along and get into what we're going to be talking about today. It's going to be kind of an eerily similar show to last week, except what we're going to do is we're basically going to recap everything that took place from last week, because there really aren't too many new news items. I just put out a video recently, a bonus video that is kind of chronicling two of the major combat sports news topics as we kind of transition over here. But in any sense, yeah, that's what we're going to do. So Zan's overview, we're going to be discussing more of the NBA Finals. By the time this comes out, another game will have already took place. We'll be covering the Stanley Cup Final and how I think that's going so far. If my prediction of the Whalers is on pace to do anything, we're going to talk about Tom Thibodeau writing an open letter thanking everyone and thanking the fan base for the New York Knicks, of course. We'll be recapping UFC 316 and kind of putting a bow on it. I'll tell you how I did on the card, and I'll tell you a few other not ancillary, but a few other additional things in regards to the show that I think are major takeaways before we preview UFC Atlanta. We'll also be going over some more news and notes on the Jones Aspinall fight and just kind of more of my opinion on where I think it sits. And I'm going to dive into a little bit more of a pertinent take that I never got a chance to cover in the short video that you guys saw on socials the other day. We're also going to be going over a few other things as well. So we're gonna dive right in, and we'll start with Tom Thibodeau's open letter to the New York Knicks. And let me read a portion of it to you. It's kind of a long-winded statement, but let me read a portion of it to you just so you guys can kind of take it in for what it is. So this is from Bleacher Report, courtesy of Mike Shari. And this is a tweet from Frank Isola, which has since gone viral. Let me read a portion of it to you. So it says, "To the best city in the world with the best fans in the world, thank you. When I was hired in 2020, I said this was my dream job. I'm grateful that dream became a reality. Thank you to our players and coaching staff who gave everything they had, and to everyone who made this franchise special. I am proud of everything we accomplished together including 4 playoff appearances in this year's run to the Eastern Conference Finals, our first in 25 years. And to the fans, thank you for believing in me and embracing me from day one, watching you support our team and seeing the Garden ignite uh, with with um with that is with that incomparable Knicks energy is something I will never forget. The text is a little funny on this. With gratitude and respect, Tom Thibodeau. So I'm just gonna say this: it couldn't have been any classier. A lot of people are frustrated that he was fired. A lot of people thought he was the right coach for this job. The Knicks have to move on. Um, it's unfortunate, but I do think Tom Thibodeau handled this in the best way he possibly could. It's very disappointing that this is how he had to go out. I feel his pain as a Bulls fan. He was one of my favorite coaches during the years that he coached in Chicago. I think for the most part, he was very well respected. Um, they weren't really the same team after Rose got injured. Um, but um, but yeah, I mean, it's definitely interesting. It's definitely something to note, and I think it's one of those things where the Knicks are going to have to move on. They're going to figure out what they're going to want to do moving forward, and this is going to be a rough offseason unless they can find the right coach. So it'll be interesting to see where the Knicks go from here. Didn't want to delve on that too much longer, but speaking of the NBA, Thunder Pacers so far. So at the time that we're recording this, it's tied up going to Indy. By the time this comes out, at least someone will have a series lead. It's a question of who it might be. So overall, I think the series is going well. I think it's going as expected. Oklahoma City punched Indiana right in the mouth in game 2 and smoked them at home. Game 1 was an emphatic finish by Tyrese Halliburton. So I think it's shaping up to be a good series. I think whoever wins this next game, though, is going to have the momentum going into game 4. I just feel like that's the way some of these series have gone. I still like the Thunder to win the series in 6 games, which means they'll have to steal at least one of these on the road. But I think it's one of those where, if one of these two teams goes cold shooting the basketball the next few games, it'll be very interesting. But I like the Thunder here to still win the series. I think it's a good series so far. And just another note, the smaller market teams, that's something that people are frustrated with. Two small market teams. I'm just going to say it. If you don't like it, you don't have to watch the series. No one is telling you to watch this series. No one is forcing you to watch this series unless you have to do it for your job. I can understand your frustration, but if you are a reporter in one of these two markets, if you're a fan in one of these two markets, you got to be ecstatic. And I think two Midwest teams, it's different, it's unique. As someone who's also from the Midwest, I understand I live in the third biggest media market in the country, and the Bulls aren't in the finals, but I'm at least paying respect to the fact that we have two Midwest teams in this championship, and I just wanted to make it known that I feel like people are taking this the wrong way. People should be embracing this. That's the evolution of the sport. Just like in fighting or just like in the NFL, when you have a team, who's not really known for winning, win a little bit. It's exciting. The Detroit Lions being a prime example. If you look at fighting, you got all these guys from other countries. A guy we're going to get to in a little bit, Merab Dvalishvili out of Georgia. I mean, think about it. 6 years ago, you weren't talking about Georgian or Dagestani fighters, being the faces of combat sports. So I think it's just an evolution of sports. I think it's a great thing, and very similarly to the Stanley Cup Final, you got Florida and Edmonton. These are two teams that not a lot of people think about as NHL juggernauts. At least in this generation, they kind of pop up out of nowhere sometimes. And this is also another thing where you kind of don't know, and you kind of have to feel it out a little bit as a casual observer to really get into the Stanley Cup Final. And I think that's what's made the series so exciting. Is these two teams aren't willing to back down from one another. The first 2 games were super, super awesome. One went to overtime, the other went to multiple overtimes, and you gotta like what you see. And I still like Edmonton to win the series. But I think overall, though, the Stanley Cup Final has gone well. It's done what it's needed to do in terms of an entertainment value. And maybe it's not the ratings juggernaut, like not having the Rangers or not having the Penguins in there or not even having Chicago in there. But I still think it's one of those Stanley Cup Finals where um, you have to understand that this is what you're going to get some years, and this is what we're getting with the Stanley Cup Final and NBA Finals. And again, the same goes for this. If you don't like it, you don't have to watch the series. It's simple as that. And again, I still like Edmonton to get this done. All right, let's move on now. Jon Jones, Tom Aspinall, what's going on with the fight? It is Friday, June 13th at the time that this is airing. We still don't know what the heck is going on with it. And we probably won't know for a good bit because the UFC 316 post-fight press conference was very interesting. Shout out to all the reporters who asked Dana as many questions as they could about this fight. But the one question that was not asked, and I think it's for a good reason, I think it was more so fear of retribution or whatever the case may be, is what is the cutoff time on this fight? When is it where the UFC says, oh, we have to move on and we have to go in a different direction? That's a very good question. And that's an answer I don't know. But to hear that for the first time that I've seen, and I try to follow this as much as I can, for the first time that I've seen him saying that John agreed to fight him, that's a big deal. So now we got to layer in some of these questions. What is really going on? Is it a money concern? Is it a date? Is it a venue? Is it term based? Maybe not contract based, but maybe the reward that comes with a win in this fight. Is it going to be, I become the heavyweight champion and I become the highest paid fighter the UFC has ever had? Is there another incentive in this to where, if the fight's close, is there a potential rematch clause in play? Like, I don't know what is exactly going on. Or is it simply waiting for the new TV rights deal to take effect, which would be very interesting? Is it going to be Netflix? Is it going to be ESPN? Is it going to be Amazon Prime? Is it going to be another player in the space that really wants this fight? That's going to be interesting. And somebody else brought it up the other day. Damon Martin of MMA Fighting smartly brought up, with the Canelo Crawford fight being exclusive to Netflix, does that mean the UFC is going in that abolishing the pay-per-view direction to give the fans the fights that people want for no extra cost on Netflix? I don't know. That's a very good question, and I'm glad he brought it up because it's a question that I think a lot of people don't seem to have the answers for. And I also think it's one of those things, too, where no matter what they decide to do, no matter if this fight happens or if it doesn't happen, people are going to be happy. People are not going to be happy regardless. I am still sticking with the notion that I think the fight happens. As I alluded to a week ago, they've had too many other instances where they've had major fights slip through the cracks for one reason or another. There's no excuse why this fight can't get done. Okay, and I've seen people say, "Oh, if Jon Jones doesn't want to fight Tom Aspinall, he doesn't have to." Well, I agree to an extent from a career standpoint. I disagree in the sense that you are the heavyweight champion of the world. You defended your belt last November. You have the number one contender and interim heavyweight champion being forced to defend his belts. Okay, well, you go and fight a 40-plus-year-old Stipe Miocic for your legacy, okay? And you're not willing to give him the opportunity to unify the belts. My thing is this: either fight or move on and say, look, Aspinall, you can get promoted to undisputed champion and you can fight whoever you please in the division. Because we know this, unless a miracle happens, he will beat everybody in the top 5. That's currently in the top 5 right now. The heavyweight division is so weak that he would beat every single person 3 times over in the top 5 if he were to not fight Jones. And he would beat Cyril Gane. And Cyril Gane is already 0-2 in heavyweight title fights. People seem to forget that, losing to Jones and Ngannou. So you mean to tell me that the heavyweight division is weak? And it's not only weak, it is weak and then some. This fight needs to happen. It's a fresh matchup. It's a fight we've never seen before. and it's a fight that everybody would be excited to see. It would be the biggest fight of the year, and it would be one of the biggest fights, if not the biggest fight in UFC history, as Dana has alluded to countless times. So I am sticking with the notion again that I think the fight's going to happen. I think Dana is legitimately hiding something that I think is very, very, very important, and I think it all has to do with whoever they go to next as a broadcast partner. And they're waiting to figure out who that broadcast partner is going to be before they make this grand virtue announcement that Jones is fighting Aspinall on said platform in November or December um, later this year, either Madison Square Garden or T-Mobile Arena. So that's kind of how I feel about that. I do think the fight's going to happen. If it doesn't happen, it would be a legit travesty. So I'm going to keep peppering this every week until we get something. I saw Ariel Helwani say International Fight Week has to be the deadline. I disagree. I think the UFC can take as much time as they want, as long as they can figure out where they're going next, and as long as they can figure out a date. People need to calm down. I think this fight's happening, and somebody else mentioned it. I don't remember who it was, but shout out to you, whoever said it. This is the greatest promotion that I've ever seen for a UFC fight, because the internet is a buzz. People can't stop talking about this. I can't stop talking about it. So if I can't stop talking about it, if the next person can't stop talking about it, that means it's such a big deal that everybody wants to see it. So I'm excited for this. It's got to happen. They can't let this slip through, and I'm going to keep peppering it until we get an announcement. So, um, yeah, there's all that. That's the latest on Jones Aspinall that I can share, and I think Dana's comments are very important, because he wouldn't just say that he agreed to fight him without legitimacy behind it. And shout out to everyone who asked those questions. Again, the only question that wasn't asked is, what is the cutoff for this fight? Is this fight really happening, or is this just smoke and mirrors? We really have no idea, but I'm excited to see how the rest of this develops moving forward, and so much more. All right, now we're going to move over to a message from our friends over at Playback, and once that is over, we will get back to the show and wrap things up for the home stretch. So I will see you guys in just a few. Just wanted to give a quick timeout in the middle of the show to remind you guys that Bando's Breakdowns is presented by Playback. I teased it a little bit earlier that there was an announcement coming, and sure enough, without further ado, here we go. Presented by Playback, watching sports is more fun with others, but we spend too much of our time watching alone. Playback is a virtual space where communities can stream live sports together with everyone perfectly synced up. Creators can hop on stage, deliver their own play-by-play analysis and commentary, and invite viewers up for Q&A. Playback makes watching sports fully interactive and a social experience. From playing fantasy sports, repping your favorite players and teams, and watching with the commentators and communities you care about. Win or lose, sports are best enjoyed together. Join our community by going to playback.tv/ETV Network to find out more, including our live stream schedule. And with that, we can get back to the show. All right, thanks again for listening to that message. We are continuing on with the show, and it should be a good final stretch. So let's keep it rolling with the themes here. We have a couple more. UFC 316 recap. The UFC gets their dream women's fight, and that is going to be supposedly Amanda Nunes versus Kayla Harrison. Kayla Harrison, extremely dominant in her win over Juliana Pena to win the UFC Women's Bantamweight title, make it look really easy, secure a Kimura submission win, and was a flawless performance by Harrison, the judo Olympian, the two-time judo Olympian that is, and former PFL star. So that'll be exciting to see Nunes come out of retirement to make what Dana White believes is the biggest women's fight that could ever be made. He even said it was bigger than Cyborg Nunes, which arguably I would agree with in a sense, because now, and then not only is the sport bigger, but Kayla Harrison to me seems like a bigger star since she moved over to the UFC, because there was so much anticipation after her PFL stint was over that more and more would come out, and she just dominated Pena. She made it look super easy. But discussing the main event, though, and this is where the big concern lies, Merab Dvalishvili submits Sean O'Malley in the third round. O'Malley looked horrible in this fight, man. I mean, he might have looked worse than he did in the first one. couldn't really get off, had some decent boxing at times, but Merab's pace was just so frenetic that he just couldn't seem to get off. He couldn't seem to find the power shots that he needed to. Again, not a good performance. O'Malley needs to go back to the drawing board. It seems like O'Malley's going to go back to doing what he was doing before, re-implementing some of the things that he said he was cutting off ahead of the fight, and some other stuff. He talked about, going back on social media, getting drunk, not really focused on fighting, just kind of milling about, maybe taking care of some other stuff, maybe getting into some crypto. I don't really know, but it seems to me like his mind is no longer on fighting, at least for the moment. And it's disappointing from a business angle because the UFC knows how much money Sean O'Malley can make for them. And it would have been a huge trilogy had he won. And now Merab is going to move on, more than likely fight Corey Sandhagen, even though Umar Nurmagomedov is still right there. Granted, Umar Nurmagomedov just lost to Merab. So, of course, the UFC needs a fresh challenger. And, of course, Peter Yan is now fighting Marcus McGee. So the bantamweight division is in a little bit of a bind. There's rumblings going around that people want to see O'Malley fight Davison Figueiredo. I think that's a perfect matchup considering that both are on losing streaks at the moment. So I don't know. I think the bantamweight division is in a very weird place. But overall for the card, I thought it was an okay card. I'll give it a B minus. I went 7-6 on the card. We're up to 131 wins now. 2-3 on the main card, a rough go of it. Lost some pretty big ones. Lost Patchy Mix, which a lot of people did. Lost the main event and lost Kevin Holland versus Vicente Luque. So not the greatest card for me in the world, but we're hoping to get back at it with UFC Atlanta and to try to move this this year along because I need momentum. My record's decent, 131-96, but we could be doing a lot better. So let's move in here to UFC Atlanta preview. Back over to the Fight Night series now for the UFC, and it continues their stretch of no Apex events for at least 2 months. Again, I haven't put in my picks on Tapology. I need to do that at some point before Saturday, which I will. Of course, let's take a look at the main event. 5 rounds. Kamaru Usman, Joaquin Buckley. Huge fight in Atlanta, Georgia. Main event of the evening here. And a big fight for the welterweight division is to move and shake, if you will. Okay, so Buckley's won 5 in a row. He's a minus 275 favorite. Usman has lost 3 out of his last 5. He's nearing 40 years old. He's sitting at 38. And the Tapology community loves Joaquin Buckley to win this fight, and there's a reason for that. He has dangerous knockout power. He's beat some of the best welterweights in the world. His last win was against a former interim welterweight champion in Colby Covington, and he made it look really easy. He knows he's on a doorstep of a title shot. Kamaru Usman has not fought on cable TV in 6 years. He's 20-4, but he's had a bit of a downfall since starting out hot. He's lost 3 in a row, twice to Leon Edwards. Of course, the first time losing the belt on that emphatic head kick knockout, which was unbelievable. He was winning that whole fight, lost in round 5, was dominated in the rematch, and then, of course, lost to Hamza Chimaev on short notice at UFC 294 and hasn't fought since. Has a lot of kind of baggage going on, was on a really nice run before that, but I like Buckley. I think he's the younger, more exciting fighter at this point. Usman just doesn't look the same. The welterweight division seems to be a 3-horse race right now with him, Ian Gary, and Shavkat. There's also Sean Brady in the mix as well. I think 170 is a very exciting division. And, of course, we just had Jack Della Maddalena beat Bilal Muhammad to win the welterweight title. He'll more than likely be fighting Islam Makhachev next at some point later this year. That fight has not been officially announced yet. We would assume, though, it'll probably be in October at some point. I think the division's in a good spot, but I really like Buckley in this main event. You'll get my full card preview and picks on Saturday as per usual, and you'll also get some more on Zain Zinger Part 2, which if you tuned in last week, thanks so much for doing so. Again, very, very much appreciated in making sure that went off without a hitch. I had a really good time doing that. But that's going to preview UFC Atlanta again. 7-6 last week, 131 wins, trying to keep some more momentum going as well. Should be a decent card Saturday night. It'll be on the ESPN's And it's not a bad card. Let's see how many fights are on this card. Let's just take a brief capsule at this card overall. So card is okay. Rose Namajunas in the co-main event. It's a 13-fight card from the State Farm Arena in Atlanta, Georgia. It's their first card in Georgia since 2019. ESPN Plus for the whole thing. Got some decent fights. Cody Garbrandt's back. Cody Brundage is back against Mansour Abdul Malik. Alonzo Menefield is on this card. Paul Craig versus Bellato is rebooked for this card. We know what happened there. There was some herpes issues with that one from about a month ago. Malcolm Wellmaker is one of the biggest favorites in UFC history. Some are saying he is the biggest favorite in UFC history, but I've yet to verify that. He's fighting the returning Chris Moutinho, who's known for losing to Sean O'Malley in his UFC debut. Let's see. Phil Rowe is on this card. Ricky Simone, the last guy to beat Merab Dvalishvili, is fighting a weight replacement. And Cameron Smotherman. So that'll be interesting. Let's see. We're getting Cameron Smotherman, 12-5 overall. Toughest fight of his career for sure. He's 1-1 in the UFC. His last fight and his lone win in the UFC came against Jake Havley by unanimous decision at UFC Fight Night on October 19th. But yeah, decent card from Atlanta. Check it out on ESPN Plus if you have nothing else to watch. Saturday night, 7 Eastern start for the whole thing. So just, or excuse me, that actually doesn't seem right now that I think about it. Let me just make sure. I don't think that's right. It starts at, let's see. Yeah, that is right, because the main card starts at 10 p.m. Eastern. So, similarly to a pay-per-view format. All right, let's move on. One thing that I saw, a couple more, and they're all, it just ended up being this way that they're all UFC related. But one thing that I saw, O'Malley ridiculed online for a really bad performance, which he was, man. I mean, I saw people calling for his retirement. I saw people saying that he wasn't prepared. I saw people saying that he was lazy in there. I saw people saying a lot of different things. I saw people just kind of say that he was, in so many words, an embarrassment to the division. So there's going to be a lot of stuff that's going to come out about him over the next few weeks, I'm sure. Is it disappointing from his perspective? Yes. Does he deserve some of the criticism? Probably. But it is what it is. And I think he deserves it, given how much he said he was confident going into the fight and whatnot. And again, he's going to have to go back to the drawing board and figure out what he really wants to do, because it's clear his headspace just isn't all there. Well, that's the real disappointing part. And speaking of O'Malley, my Zinger, and this is another reason why the UFC needs to think about these AI rankings, is how the heck is O'Malley the number one contender still? He's lost 2 in a row to the same guy. It doesn't make sense to me. He should have dropped out at least to number 4 or number 5, something. To drop him out of pound for pound, though, that makes sense because he's no longer the champion anymore. But to still be the number one contender, as last I saw, it could have changed. Let me just double check and make sure I'm not nuts. But last I saw, he was the number one contender. Yeah, he still is. And Umar Nurmagomedov, without even fighting, moved up 1 spot. So that just goes to show you how nutty these rankings can be at times. But I don't like it. I don't think it's fair. You got to reward guys for being the number one contender, not reward guys for losing. So that's how I feel about that. I think it's pretty crazy. Could he be thrust right back into a title fight? That would be the most undeserved trilogy I've ever seen. But he'll need to win a couple more to get back to Merab or whoever the champion is at some point in 2026, because I don't see how he's fighting for the rest of the year. I think he's probably going to take the remainder of the year off. That's just my gut feeling on that. I think he's the biggest loser from this card, and I don't even think it's close, because everybody expected Pena to lose to Harrison. So that's how I feel about that. All right, no errors this week, so that's going to do it for another edition of Bando's Breakdowns. Thanks again for tuning in. Greatly appreciated. Again, my name is Zain Bando. This has been episode 49. Was a fun show this week. Kept it really short and simple. Check out all of the content that's coming out across social media, and as well as Playback. We have a lot more Playback stuff coming out. NBA Finals streams over the next several days. Some soccer stuff coming out, and a whole lot more. So it should be exciting. It should be a fun summer for all the stuff we got coming out. And looking forward to seeing what episode 50 of this thing is going to be like. I can't believe we're already at 50 episodes. We're almost close to it. But thanks again for sticking along the journey here. I greatly appreciate it. And just as one final reminder, to please be sure to listen to Bando's breakdowns wherever you get your podcast. And again, that's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Acast, and so much more. And again, be sure to subscribe if you have a minute to do so. And until next week, I hope you have a great rest of your week and your weekend, of course. And we'll get more into some more coverage, if you will, for the rest of June and moving forward. So thanks again for tuning in. Greatly appreciated. And I hope you guys have a great weekend.